All right, what's up, my friends? Welcome to the complete set review for March of the Machine.
We are the Borg. You will be assimilated.
Watch out.
Resistance is futile.
They're coming, all right? And we got a crazy set here, a brand new card type, tons of cards, double-face cards, planeswalkers, and a whole bunch of stuff. This is my whole set review where I do every single card, constructed, limited, all the cards, all organized into different sections. We'll do all the colors. We'll do the battles at the end. So we'll do all the battles at the end, multicolor colors, and so on and so forth. And first, with the follow button, like, comment, subscribe, obviously watching on YouTube. We got a lot of things coming up. Unfortunately, 10 new brews, early access. I'm flying tonight to DreamHack, and the next week I fly to Orlando for Command Fest. 10 new brews are going to be pushed back, unfortunately. We got Bronze Mythic coming up also. Paladin pre-release. Lots of great stuff happening in Discord. That's all awesome. Let's just freaking go here, all right? Enough of the administrative crap. Let's just get in and start right at the top with Aerial Boost. 2 mana for an instant. Convoke. Well, as always, we go over the mechanics as we go over the set review. Returning mechanic here in Convoke. If you're unfamiliar, your creatures can help cast this spell. So you can tap your creatures, sort of like a mana creature, to pay for 1 mana of this spell, and the color impacts it also. So you can tap a Thalia, Guardian of Thraben, and a island, and then cast Aerial Boost. I guess you can't because Thalia will tax it. Whatever, all right? But yeah, you get the idea. So Convoke's back, great mechanic, lots of fun. 2 mana for a pump spell, +2/+2, and flying to end of turn. Honestly, Convoke is pretty cool on pump spells because there's never like a shields down moment where, you know, kind of like Gather Courage back in the older set where you say go, you tap out for a creature, they attack you, you tap creatures and play this. It helps you curve out a little better. That being said, I don't love the generic like +2/+2s. Yeah, they're just okay in limited. Not a very exciting limited card. It's fine. Play around it. Not a little bit of reach, obviously, if you can just jump your creature for the last attack. But all in all, this is just like a reasonable trick in limited. However, be aware of it because it can Convoke. You know, don't get got too early on. Alablaster, Host Intercessor. What?
You're saying it wrong.
Freaking long title names. 6 mana for a 3/4 common. We see a cycle of plains cycling or land cycling creatures in the set. Kind of an old mechanic, really cool. Basically, you can pay 2 and just go get a land. So you can go get a plains, which is kind of cool. And this one's actually really interesting. This is the only, I believe, common version of the, you know, Banisher Priest sort of, you know, come into play, exile thing till it leaves effect at common, I think. Don't quote me on it. But this card's pretty damn good, honestly. 6 mana for a 3/4. It's a removal spell, and a 3/4 is a pretty well-sized body. One of the issues with cards like, you know, Brutal Thar and Friends, they're usually like 2/2s or 1/3s. So they don't get into combat very well. This thing can rumble. It can block, it can attack. And of course, it has a cycling ability. Also, I think one thing to note if you play with these cycling abilities in the past, the land cycling abilities, is they're not going to be as good as now as they were then. Because curving out now is so important. It's so important to have a 2-drop, have a 3-drop. So stumbling to fix your mana is not ideal, but obviously it's not bad either. So I think you should be trying to take these cards on front value of what does the creature do. Whereas the old land cyclers back in like Onslaught, you know, it was just like, cool, land cycler, and if it does something, awesome. So this card's pretty good though. It's obviously not a high pick because you can't take this card. You can't play like 4 of these. But this card does seem very solid for limited. Definitely a cool one. Honestly, I like the design of this card a lot. Pretty unique. Alablaster, Host Sanctifier, 2/2 lifelink. If you haven't been paying attention to limited in the last 5 years, this card's good. That's it. 2/2 lifelinks are always really good. There's a lot of bolster stuff in this set as far as putting counters on it. This is going to be as good as it was in every other set this has been in the past 5 years. Excellent draft common. Angelic Intervention, 2 mana for an instant. Target creature or planeswalker you control gains protection from colorless or from the color of your choice till end of turn. If it's a creature, put a +1/+1 counter on it. So this is your typical protection spell. You know, puts the counter on it. At 2 mana, it's a lot worse. It'll be at 1 mana, obviously, but still pretty good. Adding the counter is nice. You can win combats, protect your things, can push through. Interesting, it targets planeswalkers too. Kind of a weird, like, you know, not a common thing we see on commons like this. But again, it's just an okay, you know, limited card. These effects are usually a little better than they look, being both a combat trick and a protection spell. But yeah, just fine. I would want 1 million of these, but you know, it's just definitely a solid draft card. Not really constructed, obviously. Archangel Elspeth. No awards. This is going to be a 4 mana planeswalker with 4 loyalty. +1, make it 1/1 lifelink. -2, put 2 +1/+1 counters on a creature. Becomes an angel and gets flying, like permanently. I don't know why it's on a flying counter. And then -6, return all non-land permanent cards and mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. I know Elspeth Knight Errant, one of the original Planeswalkers from way back in the day, was a super, super good card back in when it was legal in Standard. That was a long time ago. Planeswalkers and cards are a lot better now in general. I think this card's only okay. This is the kind of card where if your aggro deck is looking for a change of pace kind of threat in Constructed, this card does that pretty well. You know, obviously you can jump things, which is kind of cool. But realistically, like making a 1/1 to defend itself at a 4-mana Planeswalker is okay. I don't know if you start this card or play a ton of this card. I think it will definitely see play Constructed, but it's not going to be like a cornerstone kind of card. It's going to be, you know, change of pace. This is decent. You know, definitely no Wandering Emperor as far as like defining a color or a format. Just going to be a fine change of pace card. It does make soldiers, which is kind of cool. Obviously gives a little bit of reach, which is kind of cool. The ultimate's nice too, but the ultimate, again, usually the ultimate matters when you're playing an aggro deck and you're playing against a control deck, and they have this, you know, kind of like playing a variety of different kind of types. So I think this is a decent but not that exciting constructed card. Obviously a slam dunk bomb and limited will win you the game most of the time, like most Planeswalkers will. Attentive Skyward. Close to Bombin Common. I think this card's pretty good. Usually a 2/2 flyer for 3 is pretty bad. Windrake is not very exciting anymore. But whenever it deals combat damage to a player or a battle, you just transform your incubators. So basically it just gives you 2 free mana every time it hits, which is pretty awesome. The black-white mechanic in a set is incubator tokens, which are tokens that have an X value on them. Or I guess they have a variable value on them. And you can pay 2 mana to turn them into a creature that's that size. So Incubate 3 gives you a token in play with a 3 counter on it, and you can pay 2 and flip it into a creature. So you always pay 2 to make it into a creature, and the size is variable based on whatever effect makes it. This can just flip it for free. So that's pretty sweet, honestly. You play this thing, next turn you play a card that makes an Incubate token, attack with this, and then flip it immediately. That's pretty good tempo. And it's a 2/2 flyer, which is also reasonable too. There's also Phryxian, which has some mild synergies also. So I think it's a solid common. I think don't be fooled by the fact that most 2/2 flyers for 3 aren't that great limited anymore. I think this one's pretty good. Obviously not constructed, but Bola Slinger. 4 mana for a 2/2 cat soldier with backup 1. Again, new mechanic, backup. Whenever this creature enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature, which can be itself. If that's another creature, it gains the following ability until end of turns. These are all cards that can kind of pump a different creature or pump themselves. They pump a different creature. That creature gains the temporary ability of this card. So whenever this creature attacks, tap target artifact creature and opponent controls. So this card is these sort of like tappy attacker cards are usually quite good when they're cheap. Like the 2/3 for 3 attack tap a thing. That's great. This is a 2/2 for 4 though. You can also put the counter on it and make it a 3/3, which is fine. It's solid if unexciting. And then being able to put the counter on something else is cool. But this 2/2 you're left over with just isn't very exciting either. So I think this is like a kind of a middling, not very exciting draft common. If you're super aggressive, need a way to push through, it can do that. Obviously, if you have cards that care about the counter, there are a few cheap keyword creatures like the Lifelinker we just saw. There's a common Double Striker. We will see it a little bit. If you're, got a lot of those going on, sure, it can be a role player. But I think this is mostly just a role player in limited. Nothing super exciting. Boon-Bringer Valkyrie, however, is quite exciting. 5 mana for a 4/4 flying first strike lifelink. Backup 1. So same idea, same mechanic. This is just the rare version of his mechanic, where it comes into play, you put a counter on something, and then it'll gain flying, first strike, and lifelink till end of turn. So face value on an empty board, this is Baneslayer Angel. You just put the counter on itself. But jumping something else is pretty good too. However, what deck is going to want this card and constructed? Is your aggro deck curving out to turn 5 for their curve topper? Not really sure about that. But if you want a Baneslayer, this was obviously very, very reasonable for that job and can do other things as well. And the lifelink's pretty important too. There isn't a lot of aggro in standard right now, so the lifelink isn't as important as it might be. So constructed, I think this card's like a fringe player. Probably maybe not a main deck card. But definitely it could see play under the right circumstances. In limited, slam dunk bomb. Your windmill slam every time. Card's super, super insane. You get the idea. Cut short. The mana for an instant with Convoke. Destroy target planeswalker that was activated this turn or tapped creature. Kind of your typical white removal spell that can only stop things that have already... I'm sorry, that's an instant. Never mind. Can start things that have already kind of attacked you. Story beat here too. Pouring out for Tamio, right? Aww. Tamio's stories came to an end. Sorry, Tamio. Bad beat. Bad beat. But this card's fine. Not super exciting. Similar to these effects in most limited formats where, you know, they have to attack. Your opponent can play around it by not attacking. The fact that it does Convoke is kind of cool because you... Normally, when you have a card like this, you say go. It's fairly obvious in limited that you have it because it's turn 4. You have 4 cards in your hand and didn't do anything. But the Convoke mechanic on this does help a lot because you tap out for your 3rd creature and say go. Now they can have it on the offense. So it's a little better than these effects is usually. But still, you know, I think a savvy opponent will sniff this one out at times. But if you're creature heavy, kind of cool. And the Planeswalker effect is not really relevant for limited. And this card's not good enough for constructed. So, Dusk Legion Duelist. Bam! Best in show, 2 mana for a Vampire Soldier. This is a 2/2 with Vigilance. Whenever 1 or more +1/+1 counters are put onto this creature, draw a card. Triggers only once a turn, so you can't go nuts with this card. But this card's super solid. 2/2 for 2 Vigilance is obviously reasonable. And there are so many effects that can put counters on this. You know, Rafine, Luminarch Aspirant. You can just go for hours and hours and hours with cards that can pump this. But very, very good. And if you ever draw a single card off this, you're way ahead on rate. You now have a 3/3 for 2 with Vigilance that drew a card, which is awesome. And it only goes up from there. It's a soldier. There's like the 3 mana soldier that does the Luminarch Aspirant effect. This card's real good. I think this is going to be definitely a player in standard for sure. A player in older formats perhaps, maybe play Pioneer. It's not a human, unfortunately, so you can't value send it onto it. But yeah, definitely cards I see a lot of play in standard. I think it's very, very good. Obviously, for the backup cards, you know, there was counters there. There's just also counters everywhere. I know Aspirant's not in standard, I'm just saying for multiple formats, and the card exists very, very well. So, very, very solid card. Bomb limited card, obviously, just super, super good. And yeah, best in show for white. Pretty exciting card. Dusk Legion Duelist. Elesh Norn. Look who's back. And this is not Elesh Norn Mommy. This is not Elesh Norn, this Rancino bite. This is just Elesh Norn. Kane. Just Kane. Anyone? No? From God to Seth to Kane? No one? God damn it. So Elesh Norn is a 4 mana 3/5 Vigilance. Still our mommies. And a 3/5 Vigilance for 4s. Okay. Whenever a source an opponent controls deals damage to you or a permanent you control, that source's controller loses 2 life unless they pay 1. Okay. It's like fine. Obviously, your opponent has the choice to deal damage to you or not. They can just pay the 1 also. So, not very exciting, honestly, for that ability there. But you pay 3, sacrifice 3 of the creatures, and exile this, and flip it over. So, all of these Praetors are flip cards that have a Saga on the back and some condition to flip them. Flips over into the Argent Etchings. So, Saga Chapter 1. Incubate 2 5 times. 5 times. So, you get 5 Incubate tokens that are 2 counters on them, and they all cost 2 to flip. Chapter 2, creatures you control get +1/+1 and gain double strike to end of turn. Pretty big deal. Chapter 3, destroy all other permanents except for artifacts, lands, and Phyrexian. So these are all really, really powerful effects. The problem is, like, how good is the front side? You know, the front side is only okay. Sacrificing 3 creatures is a huge cost. It's a huge cost. I'm sorry, Chapter 1 transforms them also. So, my bad. Sorry, I misread it. There's a lot of words in these cards, so you gotta bear with me here. So, this just makes 5 2/2s when it flips, which is really, really good. I apologize. So, Chapter 1, 5 2/2s that are all Phyrexians. Chapter 2, pump them all double strike. Chapter 3, destroy everything else but those. So, that is actually very, very good. So, the backside of this, no question, is very, very powerful. The question is the front side good enough to warrant playing it and then having to hit this huge, you know, cost of 3, sacrifice 3 creatures? It's a lot. It's definitely a lot. So, you know, a token deck with Mondrag, maybe something like that could be a thing. There are ways you can build around this card. The question is it worth it? Is the juice worth the squeeze and constructed? I don't know, honestly. It's a lot. You know, if you want to do it all at once, it's 7 mana, which is a lot too. I think this card probably isn't really there and constructed. You know, if you flip it, it's extremely powerful. It's hard to flip, and the front side isn't necessarily good enough. Can't sack artifacts. I'm sorry, can't sacrifice artifacts. Yeah, it's also sorcery speed only, so you can get blown out by kill it response. I don't know. The card's pretty cool. It has a lot going on, but I think overall, this card isn't really good enough, despite the Saga itself being pretty busto. Obviously, it's an insane limited card because the front side's good enough by itself, but a constructed, I just don't think it's really there. But we'll see. Time will tell. Elspeth Smite. Man, poor Elesh Norn. Gets a card and just freaking gets yoked. 1 mana for an instant. Lightning Bolt and attacking your blocking creature. If it would die this turn, exile it. Amusingly enough, this card can't kill Elesh Norn. So little flavor fail there. But this card's fine. Obviously, a lot better than these effects usually are. Usually, these cards only deal 2 damage and don't exile. So this effect is reasonable. Probably the best version of this effect you've ever seen at 1 mana. So, playable, but not super exciting. In limited, it is very efficient, which is nice. The exile is kind of nice, too. In Constructed, this card could definitely see play. Exiling is also rather relevant as well. Exiling, whatever, a Razor Lash Transmorgant or whatever, stuff like that. So definitely a solid constructed card, good limited card. Apparently, I've been informed that it's not a flavor fail in the story because the blow does not kill Elesh Norn, it only hurts Elesh Norn. So I guess they nailed it. What can I say? Let's hear it for the story team. But yeah, definitely a solid card. The best version of this card you've ever seen for sure. Although most versions of this card are not very good, to be fair. Enduring Bondward, 1 mana for an 0/1, backup 1. Whenever this creature dies, put its counters on target you control. So a riff on the usual, like 1/1 for 1 that has a counter on it, then it dies, puts a counter. This is a 1/2. Can also backup. And then the thing is that if you use the backup ability, though, you're going to have a 0/1 that literally doesn't do anything for the most part. So not super impressive, honestly. Kind of like your fillery card. I doubt this. There would be a synergy deck good enough to see this card to have this card see play constructed. But in limited, if you need the backup effect and you're using the counters really, really well, it's reasonable. Or if you're doing cool sacrifice stuff, and you want to like move a counter on something and then sacrifice this, it's kind of cool also. But very, very filler level limited card. Goldscale Arena. This is the common version of that rare Angel Baneslayer. 5 mana for a 2/3 flyer, backup 1. So, again, at face value, this is a 3/4 flyer for 5, which is honestly not very exciting. It's okay. Putting the counter on something also jumps it 2 for a turn, which is kind of cool. I guess it's filler. Limited curve topper filler if you know way to push through. Guardian of Ghirapur. 3 mana for a 3/3 flying Angel, which is obviously pretty good. No awards here. This card was pretty close to my trap card because I think this card it's very, very similar to Restoration Angel and Flicker Wisp. So if you are a fan of those cards, you instantly go, oh wow, a 3/3 Flicker Wisp or a 3 mana Restoration Angel. 2 important points here. 1, no flash. That's a huge count against it, obviously, as far as Restoration Angel stuff goes. And then 2, it can only target creatures and artifacts that you control. So a lot of the cool things that Flicker Wisp used to do was target your opponent's token. It's gone forever. Target your opponent's enchantment and reset it. Target their creature with counters on it, reset it. So a lot of the cool things that Flicker Wisp used to do was involve with targeting your opponent's stuff or targeting your own land, targeting your enchantments, targeting other stuff. Limiting this to only creature or artifact is definitely limiting. However, the card's still pretty good. If you're flickering an ETB creature and getting a 3/3, it's pretty good. So it's definitely a reasonable card. Obviously, good off Collected Company. It is an Angel, which is somewhat relevant too. So this card's reasonable, don't get me wrong. But I think people are going to overvalue this card on face value by comparing it to cards that already exist. But that being said, it has merit by itself. It's definitely a solid card. Card's good. And then limited, the card's busted. 3/3 flyer for 3 is already insane. And a lot of value to get here also. So kind of cool. Infected Deflector. 5 mana for a 4/3. When it dies, incubate 3. So once again, incubate's the mechanic where you make a token with 3 counters on, or X counters based on the number, the incubate ability, pay 2 and flip it. So basically, this is a 4/3 for 5 that when it dies, you get a 3/3 that costs 2, which is honestly not the worst. It trades off, it gets some value. Not bad, but I think the 4/3 body is going to trade down a little too much. And then you get this 3/3 that costs mana. It's 7 mana for a 4/3 and a 3/3, which is fine, but ultimately not that exciting. However, if you're using the tokens for value or some way, or have Phyrexian synergies, sure, it's a little better, but mostly limited fodder. Honestly, limited filler. Inspired Charge, again, you've seen this card lots. This card's okay in limited, not great. There isn't really seem to be like a token theme in this set. As far as making 1/1s everywhere and stuff like that, which is usually what makes these cards very, very good. So, limited filler, not very exciting. Not very inspired. Kithkin Billy Rider. Man, Lorwyn's a sweet set, right? 3 mana for a 1/3 double strike at common. This card is, if I had a sleeper common for the set, if there's an award for sleeper draft common, this would be it. I think this card's going to be excellent. It was close to Bombin Common, but like there's a better card that's just like obviously much better. But I think this card is very, very good. This card plays phenomenally with the backup mechanic. You put a single counter on this thing, and it is really, really hard to beat in combat. A 2/4 double strike is tough to beat. You get 2 counters on it, and you are off to the races. So I think this card's going to be very, very, very good. One of the top white commons. Excellent, excellent draft card. Watch out for this one. Do not be fooled by the cute little goat. This card slams. This card slams. Not even new Coalition. Format for a 2/2 Vigilance. When it ETBs, make it 2/2 Vigilance. This card's a pretty common. We see this card in sets usually pretty often. Card's good. A lot of utility. It is 2 creatures. This does play well with the mass pump effect. There are also Knight synergies and stuff too. Just like a good draft common for the Knight deck. Pretty solid. Knight Errant of Eros. Eos. Eros. Whatever.
You're saying it wrong. It's Leviosa.
5 mana for a 4/4 with Convoke. So Shades of Venerated Loxodon, one of my favorite cards of all time. When it ETBs, look at the top 6 cards of your library. You may reveal up to 2 creature cards with mana value X or less from among them, where X is the number of creatures that convoked Knight Errant of Eos. Put the revealed cards into your hand, then shuffle. This card's pretty cool, but I worry that it's not doing the thing that Venerated Loxodon did that made Venerated Loxodon so good. Venerated Loxodon put a crapload of power in play, which is what you wanted because the turn you box Loxodon, you're taking off by tapping your creatures and not attacking. This doesn't add the power to the board. Rather, it gives you cards into your hand. And your aggro deck, while refilling is great, might not necessarily want that. So, I don't know. This card's very, very bizarre. I think there's a lot of tension in this card. You know, trying to play on a sweeper, do you like jam this and not attack? Do you wait? And if you wait, are you going to have more things to pump off with it? So I think this card's very, very odd. It needs to be played with for sure. It looks like a pretty good aggro card. It's important to note it's not a soldier. It is a knight. But I think this card's, okay. And then you can get creatures mana value extra less. You probably get a creature or 2 off this, but you have to be playing 1-drops or a ton of 2s to get 2 creatures off this. If you only get 1, it's not really good enough. If you get 2, it's pretty good, but that might happen all the time. So I think this card's a little weird. I want to like it because I freaking love Convoke and I love Venerated Loxodon, but I think this card's a bit of a miss, despite looking really cool. In Limited, it's awesome. Obviously, if you draw 1 card off it, you're super happy. But in Constructed, I don't know. I don't think it's really there. Core Halberd, 1 mana, equipment, +1/+1 vigilance, equip for 1. I don't hate this at all, actually. I think the 1 mana equipments are fine. It's not great. It's not a super exciting card. But I think as far as like sizing up a creature goes, Vigilance is a nice add to this as far as tempo goes. And if you just need a way to size up a little bit, this card's totally reasonable. It's obviously, filler level, not a high pick or anything. But I think this card's certainly reasonable. It's great on the goat, good on flyers. Equip 1 is cheap. It's fine. It's land on Scimitar, a little bit of upside. I think it's definitely a reasonable card. There are also some equipment matter stuff on the Legends whatever sheet that we'll get to later. Monastery Mentor.
It's a trap.
Don't kill me, folks. All right, look, I like Monastery Mentor a lot too. However, Monastery Mentor was never a great standard card. This is the kind of card that is better in older formats. Vintage, Legacy is where Monastery Mentor has done most of its damage in history. Sees very little play. Sees no play in Modern, basically. I doubt this card's going to see that much play in Pioneer also. And then in Standard, the problem is the resources aren't there to support this card. So in Vintage, you play this card off a Lotus and go Mox Recall on turn 1. That's insane, right? We don't have Moxes in Standard. There aren't even that many good 1-mana cards in Standard. This card's already in Pioneer. Oh, okay, my bad. I didn't even know that. So I think this is more an element of just like what cards exist in the format that can help this card do good things. And we think about the 1-mana spells in Standard. Consider Fight with Fire, Duress, Cut Down. Like there are a few, but there aren't that many. And the last time this card was in Standard, there was like Treasure Cruise and like some other big effects that really play with a lot of spells. But for the most part, I don't think the cards are really there. On top of power creep. There's been a lot of power creep in the last few years since the last time this card was legal in Standard. And a 2/2 for 3 is not super exciting. So I think this card's okay. I think it's we'll see a little bit of play for sure. Obviously, Third Path Iconoclast, similar kind of card. hasn't seen much play either. But, you know, I think this card is going to be people are like, oh, Monastery Mentor, sweet. We're not playing Legacy. We're not playing Vintage. We're not even playing Modern. So I think overall, not that exciting. Trap card for the set. Obviously, very good limited. You get one token off it. Very, 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 very happy. But for Constructed, I don't think it's that good, unfortunately. It's kind of sad. Kind of sad. Norn's Inquisitor. 2 mana for a 1/1. When ETBs incubate 2. Whenever a permanent you control transforms into a Phyrexian, put a +1/+1 counter on it. This card is really weird. So it's a 1/1 for 2, which is not very good. It makes the incubate, which can make it 2/2. So basically, this is like 4 mana for a 2/2 and a 1/1. I'm sorry, a 3/3 and a 1/1. Because whenever you flip over one of your incubate cards, puts a counter on it, which is kind of cool. But the body itself isn't super relevant, and it's kind of slow because it requires you to both incubate the incubate thing that you make as well as other incubate cards. I think this card's pretty good with the common 2 flyer we were saying earlier. It's definitely probably a cool piece to the incubate deck in limited, but it needs to have stuff going on with it. It's a piece for a certain draft deck, not just any draft deck. For Constructed, obviously not. But yeah, for limited, it seems fine. It seems good, but not like the most exciting card of all time. Phyrexian Awakening, another draft card here. 3 mana for an enchantment. When ETBs incubate 4. 4 is a lot. Phyrexians you control have Vigilance. So this is the card that goes super well with that flying 2/2 common, which is why I was saying that card's pretty exciting. So put a flyer, say go, next turn play this, attack, flip your incubate card for free, get a 4/4, and now your things have Vigilance. That's pretty cool. Honestly, that's pretty good. So think of this card basically as a 5 mana 4/4 Vigilance that gives your other card Vigilance with the upside of having synergy with the incubate mechanic to flip it for free and stuff like that too. So I think this is a good draft card for the Phyrexian incubate deck, which I believe is going to be the black-white deck. Constructed though, not a thing. Phyrexian Censor. This card's pretty exciting. 3 mana for a 3/3, so solid rate. Each player can't cast more than one non-Phyrexian spell each turn. Non-Phyrexian creatures ETB tapped. So in most older formats, there aren't many Phyrexians, right? So this is effectively just each player can't cast more than one spell, and then creatures enter the battlefield tapped. That's pretty damn good, honestly. Against older decks, think about Pioneer, Treasure Cruise decks, Storm decks in Modern, decks that are just playing on spells at once, decks that want a double spell. This card plays. It's findable off company, castable off a Llanowar Elf or whatever. Card's solid, honestly. Just a solid card that we'll see play on other formats. It's sized pretty well also, which is nice. And then in Standard, if there is a Phyrexian deck, this card's also pretty sweet. Like if this card doesn't affect you at all, but affects your opponent can't double spell, which is pretty cool. Kings come in tapped. This card's reasonable. I think this card's a sleeper card for Constructed. We'll definitely see some play here and there. Shades of Thalia, Shades of Archon of Meria. It's cool. This card's pretty good. Phyrexian Wizard obviously have the most relevant creature type for other formats, as far as like being a human or something like that. But card's good. I think this card has a chance in multiple formats, which is pretty cool. It's funny. I think this card, sort of like Monastery Mentor, whereas Mentor, if it's like an axis of old formats, Mentor is really, really good, and then the newer it goes, they get worse. Same with this card. This card's really, really good in older formats, and then it gets worse as the newer formats go. But in Standard, there might be a Phyrexian deck, which makes this card good. So I think this card's definitely a sleeper card for Constructed, and then very, very good draft card, especially if you're playing the Phyrexian deck. This card's just excellent. Really, really good. Progenitor Exarch. I think this card's also a good sleeper card, but I can't do more than one award, obviously. White XX, 1/2. When it ETBs, incubate X 3 times. So you can play it as a 1-drop as a 1/2 with no incubate. If you play it as a 3-drop, you get a 1/2, and you get 3 incubate 1 tokens. Obviously, it scales up. You can do the math. Tap it to transform an incubator token you control. If there's some 3x times, 3/1, and so on and so forth. This also can transform them as well, which is pretty cool. So with no cost, you can keep doing that. What did I say? Sorry, 3x. I misspoke. I apologize. 3x times. No, I'm sorry. Hi, I'm Jim. Welcome to the set review. Incubate 3x times. I'm mildly dyslexic. I apologize. So that's a lot better than I was saying it was. So you get incubate 3 once for 3 mana. So you get and then this can make a 3/3 out of it, and then it scales up as well. This also obviously plays with all of your other incubate cards. So if there does happen to be a Incubate deck constructed, this card's a linchpin for sure. Super, super cool. And then in limited, this card's excellent, big mana sink, and then can obviously transform your stuff more efficiently, which is pretty cool. I like this card. It's cool. Fun little synergy card. Good, very good draft card, and then outside chance and constructed. Realmbaker's Grasp. Unfortunately, I wanted to give oh shit, wrong button. Sorry. Unfortunately, I wanted to give Bombin Common to the 2/2 flyer, but super pacifism arrest is just like, it's just too good. 2 mana for an arrest is obviously insanely good. In limited, this is probably gonna be the best white common for sure. It's just really good. I don't know what to tell you. Constructed, probably not, but in limited, this is just a really, really good card. There's nothing else to say. We know what that card does. Bombin Common, excellent. Scroll Shift, the mana for an instant. Exile up to 1 target artifact, creature, enchantment you control, then return it to the battlefield under its owner's control, draw a card. So Flicker, basically. Flickers your artifacts, creatures, and enchantments. This card's kind of sweet, actually, because this card plays very, very well in limited with the backup mechanic, where you can, this is sort of like a +1/+1 counter, instant speed, which is sweet. So if you ever pull that off, you grow your creature, win a combat, and draw a card. It's awesome. And they can also, flicker other ETB abilities and stuff like that too. So it's a little clunky at 3 mana, but kind of a cool trick. One to watch out for in limited. I think if this is good and your deck, this card's gonna be solid. It's a fun blank variant, pretty cool card. Not a constructed card, obviously, but good limited card. Seal from Existence, white 1, enchantment, ward 3, banishing light. This card's good. Obviously, whenever you play a Banishing Light kind of effect, you run the risk of it being destroyed and getting blown out. This protects against that. It also has 2 pips, so, in older formats, perhaps this could be relevant for Devotion. But all in all, this is just a solid Banishing Light variant. The ward part won't come up that much, but when it does, it'll be good. Is that counter pointed by the harder mana cost? A little bit, honestly, but pretty good card. Great draft card, obviously. It's good. Citadel Sentinel, the mana for a 2/2 backup 1 with Vigilance. This at floor is a 3/3 Vigilance for 3, which is totally fine and limited. And then the upside, of course, is putting a counter on something good. Good draft common. Sunder the Gateway, 2 mana for a sorcery. This is a lot of words on a 2 mana common, but let's get through it and read it together. Where are my reading glasses at? My reading glasses. 2 mana for a sorcery. Choose 1. Destroy target non-token artifact or enchantment and opponent controls. Incubate 2. So it makes a can destroy an artifact or enchantment. Non-token, important to note. And Incubate 2, so you pay 2 mana later, get a 2/2. So it's 4 mana for a 2/2 that kills an enchantment or artifact. Or Incubate 2, then transform an incubator token you control. So at its base, this is a Grizzly Bear. This is just play this on turn 2, Incubate 2, and then flip it immediately. That's 2/2. The upside here is, of course, it can be a disenchant, which with upside, which is great. And if you happen to have a Incubate 4 token in play, you can cast this, flip that one instead, and make an Incubate 2 token, which is kind of cool as well. So very, very solid draft card. I think this card reads like shit. When you read it the first time, you're like, what is going on here? It looks like the terrible filler draft common ever. This card's actually very, very good. The floor is great. The ceiling's high. Great draft card. Very, very cheap, efficient. Great draft common. Like it a lot. And then the constructed, if you're looking for a disenchant effect in your white deck, you could do worse than this. Probably not, but it's fine. It's also main backable too. It's just a bear, worst case scenario. It's also Phyrexian too, so if it's a Phyrexian tribal deck, this could be a thing too. So card's good, honestly. Very, very solid card. Sunfall. 5 mana for a sorcery. Exile all creatures, incubate X, where X is the number of creatures exiled this way. This card is really good.
Wow.
Very, very good removal spell. Exiling Wraths are very good. Much better than non-exiling Wraths. There are no caveats here as far as if they have a multicolor creature, draw a card, doesn't kill this thing, doesn't kill Phyrexians, whatever. Just everything, which is great. And then having Incubate on this makes it a threat too, which is great. So say you kill 4 things of this, right? You kill 4 things with it, and then now you have his token sitting in play. You can make 2 mana instant speed, make a 4/4. That's dope. That's really, really cool. Definitely think this card's excellent. It's obviously fighting a little bit with Farewell, which is, one of the best cards in the format, but still a very, very powerful card. Very, very good. Card's excellent. In limited, probably best rare of a set for white. Insanely good. Wraths are a little hard to set up sometimes in limited, but this one giving you a resource also is phenomenal. Slam dunk, super good card. Whew. It's only white. I need a drink so far. Jesus. And, but yeah, really, really good. Really, really good. Excellent. Surge Salvation. 1 mana for an instant. You and permanents you control gain Hexproof end of turn. Prevent all damage that black or red sources would deal to creatures you control this turn. Pretty interesting sideboard card. All right, so this thing can stop you from being hit with, burn spells, Thoughtseize, whatever things you might get targeted with. Also against combo decks that are trying to one-shot you in some way. Say you're playing Escape Shift. You can just cast this, and then for the turn, they can't hit you, which is kind of cool. Then it's also a prevention effect for combat, for black and red deck, for Anger the Gods, stuff like that too. This is going to be a sideboard card that sees play in a lot of different formats, I think. 1 mana instant, super efficient, just good. Counters Invoke Despair, which is super cool. Card's good. Going to see a lot of sideboard play. I think this is going to be a sideboard staple going forward in multiple formats. Excellent card. Pretty cool. Good to see an actual good white sideboard card too, so like that one. Swordsworn Cavalier, 2 mana for a 3/1. Human Knight, it is first strike as long as another Knight is ETB'd this turn. This was also very close to Bombin Common. If you have a Knight deck, this card is amazing.
Good lord.
Basically going to be a 3/1 first strike all the time in the early game. Very, very hard to block. Excellent, excellent draft common. Again, you need Knights in your deck. You need to be the Knight deck for this card to be excellent. But when you are the Knight deck, this card's super good. So, excellent draft common. Very, very good. Tiller of Flesh. That is freaking horrifying. It's Phyrexians, I'm telling you. 4 mana for a 2/4 uncommon. Whenever you cast a spell that targets 1 or more permanents, incubate 2. Very weird card. Obviously, incubating is a mechanic in a set. Targeting stuff, not really like a major theme. But you play a pump spell or a removal spell, incubating 2 is pretty good. It's alright, kind of a card where, like, if you're playing a more controlling deck and you're killing all of our creatures, getting tokens is cool. And if you're playing pump spells, it's pretty cool. But the 2/4 body isn't that exciting. So it feels like a good card, a good defensive card, honestly, if you're playing a defensive draft deck with a lot of kill spells in it. But overall, I don't know. Just seems okay. Doesn't seem particularly amazing. I'm not going to try and say that. Cavalier Lancer. 3 mana for a 3/3. Great rate for a draft card, obviously. Whenever another Knight ETBs, this gets plus +1 Vigilance on a turn. Super high level uncommon for limited. Really, really good. Similar to the common 2-drop. If you curve common 2-drop, the 3/1 Knight into this card, into any other Knight, you are crushing in limited. Absolutely crushing. So, insanely good draft card. Constructed, I mean, it does play well with the token makers. So you're making 2 or 3 Knights and making attacking for 5. I would say outside shot if there's some sort of Knight deck constructed, but probably not, realistically. And I moved on to our flip cards. These are, this is technically a color identity blue-white card, but you can play it for only white, so we're putting it in white. Heliod, the Radiant Dawn. Hope nothing bad happens to Heliod. Hope nothing bad happens to Heliod. 4 mana for a 4/4. When it ETBs, return an enchantment card that isn't a god from your graveyard to your hand, which is fine, honestly. It's an enchantment. Could go cool in like the green-white enchantment deck, which is, it's cute. It's fine, but, unexciting. You can pay 3 and then a blue or Phyrexian to transform it as a sorcery into...
Look how they mess with my boy.
Damn it, Heliod! Heliod, the Warped Eclipse, a 4/6 enchantment creature. You may cast spells as though they had flash, and spells cost 1 less to cast for each card your opponents have drawn this turn. So, kind of a weird card, right? Like, giving your enchantments flash is like, okay. But the real thing here is this is sort of like a Jukai Naturalist, where it just like makes your cards cost 1 less. You just cast them on your opponent's turn. And if your opponent happens to draw more cards than that, you can make them even cheaper, which is kind of cool. So this card's pretty cool. Obviously only good in an enchantment deck, but there is an enchantment deck in standard right now, so could see play there. Yeah, I don't know, kind of cool. Definitely a lot of cards in this set that are very, very hard to parse on first reading. It's just hard to know how good it is. Yeah, card's cool. That's cool. Sarah for New Cabana. The mana for a 2/2 flyer. So again, Windrake, not the most exciting, but you can pay 4 and a black Phyrexian or 2 life to transform into Sarah for New Phyrexia, which is a 3/3 flyer. Whenever it attacks, you may sacrifice another creature or artifact. If you do, +2/+1. This is a fine draft card. Just okay. It's fine. Windrake, okay. Have some spare mana, make it a 3/3, okay. You can sacrifice something to it, okay. Just fine. Fine draft card. Not that exciting. Sunbus Guardian, 2 mana for a 2/2. 5 mana, and then a red Phyrexian mana transform it. It's just a vanilla 2/2 on the front. On the back is Furnace Blessed Conqueror. 3/3. Whenever it attacks, create a tapped and attacking token that's a copy of it. Put a +1/+1 counter on that token for each +1/+1 counter on Sunbus Conqueror, and then sack the token. This card's good. 2/2 for 2 is whatever. But once you flip this later in the game, it's just a 3/3 and another 3/3, which is a big deal. But if you manage to put a counter or two on it, it scales well with that too. So the big thing about this card at Limited is I don't think the back side is going to happen like a ton of the time. But the front side is just a 2/2 for 2, which is fine. And then you go up into a card that later in the game could do a lot of really big things. That's the mark of a solid draft card. So nothing super exciting. Not a card you're windmill slamming or anything like that, but it's a super solid draft card. Good card. Good with the counters. It's good. Tarkir Dune-Shaper, 1 mana for a 1/2. It's a dog warrior.
I am Khan.
1/2. Pay 4 and then a green Phyrexian. Or 2 life, transform it into a 4/3 trample. So really, really basic version of this kind of like Phyrexian transform card. This card's fine. You know, you play it on turn 1, just like deposit it into play on turn 1, get a chip shot or 2 in. Later in the game, you can flip it. I definitely would be careful with flipping this because you don't want your opponent to kill it in response. So, but a 4/3 trample is fine for like 4 mana. So it's sort of like a 4/3 haste for 4 also almost, because you play this on turn 1, it kind of sits there. Also on turn 4, you just go, okay, transform it, attack for 4, which is pretty sweet. So this is a fine common. Not bad. Just a fine card. Solid draft card. That's it. So white is all done. We're going to look back here on our awards. Once again, we do our best in show, which was Dusk Legion Duelist. Our sleeper card, Phyrexian Censor. Our trap card, Monastery Mentor. Aww. Hate mail can be directed to my inbox. And then Realm Breaker's Grasp, the Bombin Common, just a really, really good arrest effect. So that's white. You two folks love you. Like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think in the comments. Blue's coming up next. I'll see you there.